I'm Kirsten, welcome to 1 + 1 is 3. Today I'm going to be telling you the birth story of my first child. My first child was born in 2012 at 42 weeks plus 1 day. At that time, the standard procedure was to recommend induction at 12 days overdue, but I had always wanted to have as natural a birth as possible, so I asked if I could have another 2 days. So at 8 o'clock in the morning, at 14 days overdue, I went in to have a pessary inserted. When the midwife examined me, she said that my cervix had softened, shortened and come down by itself, which meant that she was willing to let me go into labour naturally as it had already started by itself. So I was really happy with that because I didn't want to be induced. I was told to come back at 7 o'clock that evening for monitoring, and that if things hadn't started by themselves, they would break my waters first thing in the morning. And in the meantime, if I started having 2 contractions in every 10 minutes, that I should come back in. At this point, I think they were worried about how my placenta was functioning as I was so long overdue. We left the hospital at about 11:30 and I had one quite strong contraction in the car on the way home. But we decided that things were probably going to take a long time. We picked up our dog, we decided to go for a walk and have a bite to eat for lunch. I did have a few more quite strong contractions in the car on the way there, and I did notice that they were quite close to being 2 in every 10 minutes. We'd met my father-in-law for lunch, and after having a few more contractions during lunch, we decided that it was probably time to go back to the hospital. So we left the dog with him and we got back to hospital about 1 o'clock. My contractions felt really strong and they seemed to be getting closer together really quickly. And I managed to breathe through them and use the TENS machine until about 9 o'clock that evening, when I had a dose of pethidine to help. After that, I managed to have a little bit of rest, but after a couple of hours, the contractions were back to full force again. Unfortunately, at one point, a midwife came and saw me and did mention the fact that she thought I would probably end up having an epidural. And by midnight, I had decided that the pain of the contractions far outweighed the reasons I didn't want to have an epidural, and I gave in. When they examined me, I was only 3 to 4 centimetres dilated, so I knew I still had quite a way to go. So at 1 AM they gave me the epidural and I used gas and air to help me keep still whilst they were doing it. Then I tried to rest on and off, but if you've ever had an epidural, you'll know that there's a little button that you can press every 20 minutes to keep the epidural topped up. And I was so afraid of the pain coming back that I kept waking myself up every so often to press the button to make sure that the epidural stayed topped up and I didn't feel any more pain. At 6 o'clock that morning, they came back and examined me and I was fully dilated, and they broke my waters, which I couldn't feel because I had the epidural on. And then they left me for an hour to let the epidural wear off before I started pushing at 7:20, and my first baby was born at 9:02. Thankfully, I didn't need any stitches, I just had a small graze which they were happy to let heal by itself, and my baby was wrapped in towels and put on my belly whilst the cord was left to pulsate, and my husband cut the cord. I remember feeling that I actually quite enjoyed the pushing stage because I felt like the pain was actually achieving something and I was actively giving birth to my baby. And I knew that once the head was out, there was just going to be one more big push until my baby was here, so that gave me something to aim for. And I breastfed him once he had already been weighed and measured. I was given the injection to help deliver the placenta, and that happened quite quickly afterwards. I must just say that this is just the way it turned out for me the first time round. It's not necessarily what I would have chosen to happen, and I did make different choices for my second birth, which I will talk about in another video. But that's just an example of what can happen. I hope you enjoyed hearing about the birth of my first baby. If you enjoyed the video, click the thumbs up, and if you don't want to miss out on my future videos, then do click the subscribe button. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.